People say that
Detroit
has no culture and talk about it as a superficial town.
Detroit
Has the best
architecture
in the world.
It's the soul of Detroit.
You asked it around, get your finger out of my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal, ML Elric, and Mark Fellhauer here in the basement at Red Shovel headquarters. And we're joined by my old pal, former colleague, union brother, fellow scribe, someone who cares about Detroit's past and its future and is trying to preserve both of them, which is no mean feat. Mr. Dan Austin, you probably know him from historicdetroit.org and now the Austin Past and Future Fund, and we'll let you know how you can support those. And in the meantime, I'm going to get this real quick because I want to get into the conversation as soon as we can. We're supported by Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, where they will help you come up with a plan for your future. Never a bad idea. Strait of Hormuz open or closed. Good to have a plan. DCFC coming home this Saturday, playing first place Louisville. This is expected to be a sellout, and you can get 15% off your tickets if you go to debtcityfc.com and use promo code SOUL, that's SOUL, at checkout, so save some money on DCFC tickets. The Caju Cafe, a great place for a great time. And of course, you, our Patreon subscribers, who are probably watching us, as you all can, for as little as $5 a month. So we have a new soulmate this week who we'll be thanking later on the show. So thanks to everyone who keeps us coming back week after week, which seems insignificant to a guy like Dan, who is trying to keep people coming back decade after decade, century after century, and joined us here in the basement and said, did you know that bananas could explode? And I think he was referring to before you eat them.
Well,
so
depends what else you eat, I guess.
So that's a hell of a cliffhanger. Dan, welcome. And what's the deal with these bananas?
It's good to see you again, Mike. Yeah, we're working on trying to uncover one of those forgotten stories of Detroit. And I always, you're a journalist, you know, sometimes
allegedly, yeah, right. But you just find these stories that are they just captivate you. And for me, we're working on trying to get to the bottom of this building in Eastern Market that used to be right next to our Hurt. And come to find out, they used to ripen bananas there, and bananas give off some kind of a gas when they ripen that is incredibly explosive. And so this building in question exploded twice because of banana gas, survived, but then it was apparently done in by what may have been an alleged, at least for now, arson. So anyway, it's just those stories. Does it change anyone's life? Absolutely not. But it's just a fun, good story. And hopefully, if anything else comes of this, people will think twice before they let those bananas sit on their counter for too long. Yeah, I imagine it'd take more than a couple bananas to blow up your house. But still, this is the kind of news you can use from the old soul of Detroit and Dan Austin. Dan, ever since I've known you, you've been fascinated by architecture in Detroit, and not just the architecture, but the stories behind the buildings and trying to preserve them. And can you tell us a little bit about how you became so enamored of this? Is this just a Detroit thing, or did you go to other cities and say, "Oh, that's really cool too. Chicago is great. Oh, look at L.A."
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Detroiter through and through. It's really the Detroit history and architecture that interests me. But yeah, if I go to Montreal or Barcelona or wherever, I mean, I take pictures of some buildings, but I don't investigate them or research them or anything like that. It's really about, well, the narrative, the mission, I should say, of the website is really shifted. So, you know, as you know, you've covered it extensively for decades. Detroit's changed a lot. But when we started, everything was getting knocked down for surface level parking lots, and a lot of these buildings didn't even get so much as an obit, you know, or a brief in the paper. And a lot of times
I just felt like these places are going away, and it's not just the building, it's not just brick and mortar, but this is a piece of our collective history that is going away with it. And for me, it was after I had started back at the Free Press. That's a lie. I was an intern. I was an intern at the Free Press, and studied under Peter Gavrilovich and Bill McGraw and all the others about Detroit history, trying to learn about them, these buildings, because I grew up in Milford and Farmington Hills, and there is, I wouldn't say no history, but not much. And there's not much.
It's usually a farmhouse, right? Or a school building or something.
Right. And at the time when I grew up there, I mean, the gravel pits were gravel pits, but now the gravel pits are all ticky-tacky subdivisions. But, I didn't have any real connection to Detroit because I was one of those Oakland County kids who we'd come into the city, go to a Tigers game at Tiger Stadium, leave during the 7th inning stretch to beat traffic. I mean, we just never explored the city. We didn't do anything. And so it wasn't until, I come down for shows occasionally in high school, but it wasn't until I moved to the Millender Center when I was an intern at the Freep, and then started riding around the People Mover trying to get a lay of the land. Every journalist needs to know their surroundings, right? Trying to figure out what was what and learn as much as I could, that I started becoming enraptured by what was that building? Why is it abandoned? It's not just because Detroit is poor or Colin Young or whatever other excuse people who are not informed want to throw out there for this stuff. And you start looking at this stuff. And for me, the building that really did it was the Statler Hotel. And
murdered actually.
by your good buddy Kwame Kilpatrick.
Yeah. Apparently Bobby Ferguson was storing bananas in there, from what I heard. I think this same cabal took down the Motown headquarters on I-75 just before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Poof, it was gone.
Gone. Yeah. They could have saved a lot of money on demo if they just ripened some bananas in there. That's a good point.
Explain that. Like, why is Kilpatrick the one? I mean, and not some kind of capitalist builder that took it down.
Because nothing happened to the site after they demolished it for 20 years. It was part of the Super Bowl cleanup effort, and look, I get it. Detroit was a much different city, and its financial outlook was a lot different, and we didn't have people fixing up old buildings left and right like we do now. History is all about looking at what happened in context in the moment in which it happened, right? I get it. That said, had they not torn it down, we would have certainly seen that building rehabbed like all the others downtown, and we wouldn't have been suffering this giant, vacant, overgrown lot next to on Grand Circus Park, right across from Comerica Park and the Fox and all of that stuff for 20 years.
we never would have had that Kid Rock video.
Yeah, that's true.
So what was it about the Statler that so
for me
captivated?
Yeah, the Statler was.
It was kind of a big, ominous edifice. I mean, it was
huge.
almost like a bunker, like a big red-brown brick.
Yeah. And it wasn't even all that
fortress.
Beautiful. It wasn't all that beautiful of a building. It wasn't like Book Cadillac level in beauty, but for me, better than a vacant lot. I think we could agree. But when I would ride around on the People Mover, again, this is like 2002, and on the rare occasions that I would then find myself with another human being on the People Mover, because that was pretty rare back then, I would always ask them, like, do you know what this building was?
Yeah.
And nobody ever.
Yeah, it's where I sleep when I get off the People Mover. I let myself in this plywood window and have a nod.
Yeah. I mean, it was like one guy told me, he's like, well, who cares? It's just another abandoned building. Well, I'll start digging around. And of course, Peter told me, oh, that's the Statler. Start going through the Free Press clip files. And it's like, oh, FDR stayed there. Oh, Harry Houdini was staying at that hotel when he died in Detroit on Halloween in 26. Like, oh, this is the hotel that brought Detroit into the modern era. It was like the first hotel with bathrooms in every room, which I get is not a reason to save a building. But I mean, the point is that it was important. Like, it was the top hotel until the Book Cadillac opened, and even then it was number 2.
I think all the ball players used to stay there, probably Babe Ruth and those guys.
Most of them stayed at the Book Cadillac.
Until the Book Cadillac opened.
Right.
But
yeah. So, I mean, the point is that this was not just another abandoned building. It had a story and played this key piece in the city's history, and we just demolished it. I was
I can tell you the story there. Get the bell ready, Mark. Mayor Archer had secured state funds to mitigate it, which is fancy words for spend millions of dollars to get asbestos and pigeon shit out of it. And it was ready to be rebuilt. And Kilpatrick came in, and his buddy Bobby Ferguson needed a quick score, apparently, and they knocked it down. And when Archer found out, and I think when the state found out, they were really pissed off because they're like, we just invested a ton of money into this building to make it ready to rehab. Yeah. And then next thing you know, we have this big empty spot. And not to get you into hotel history, but Statler is one of the great hotel chains in America. And there was this long running feud between Statler and Conrad Hilton, and Hilton was trying to beat Statler, and he finally bought some of Statler's big properties when Statler was kind of fading, and it became the Statler Hilton, and Hilton eventually became the hotel baron. So I mean, these properties not only have stories that are Detroit, but they kind of transcend. They're kind of our cultural evolution from this little hillbilly from New Mexico building a motel to being a hotel chain. And when he got to Detroit Statler, that was like one of the big days where Conrad's like, now that I've got this, I can probably marry one of the Gabor sisters. And then have a really slutty grandchild. Also mentioned on Historic Detroit. I think you guys have some videos there of Paris Hilton. Is that more of a clickbait? No, just all good stuff.
But you're right, and it's good to know that there are others who will continue to carry on, share the history of these places after I'm gone. But you're right. I mean, that is exactly what happened, and also for Muppet fans, Statler and Waldorf. Statler is named after
the guys in the balcony.
Yeah. Spoiler warning: Detroit went through a rough time, starting in the 50s, got pretty bad after '67, and then the hotel closed. Chemo brain, 74 or 76. So it was before I was even born.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was closed for a long time. To your point about the remediation, yes. And I think the Kilpatrick administration said, well, we would have had to remediate it anyway to knock it down. So money wasn't wasted, was, I think, their excuse. It's been a little while since I looked into it. But, I mean, the point was, that building, the Lafayette building, like, the Madison Lenox, there were so many buildings at that time. The Donovan building you mentioned, the Motown building on 75 and Woodward, like all of these places were all just going down seemingly overnight.
Except I will tell you, I don't want to keep butting in, but I know somebody, a very prominent Detroit developer, very successful when other people weren't successful doing stuff downtown, who was talking to Barry Gordy about trying to do some sort of Motown experience with that former headquarters, not Hitsville, USA, but they had headquarters at the northwest corner of 75 and Woodward. It was a high rise, and there was talks about that, and I think they kind of ebbed and flowed with the economy. But any hope of that ever happening, because I think people are like, why don't we have like a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or why don't we do something with Detroit's music,
or a soul or R&B or whatever Hall of Fame,
And this could have been that place. And when Kilpatrick and Ferguson needed to have another quick score, down it went. In fact, I don't remember a city council ever approving the demolition. I don't remember seeing any paperwork. I don't know where the funding came from. It was just all of a sudden it was gone.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, again, it's been a little while since I've researched that building, but it seemed like it was brought up to be seed, and it wasn't designated locally or nationally, and it was basically gone 2 or 3 months later. And there was Metro Times was really the only publication at that time that was saying, hey, wait a minute. And then, of course, once they started knocking it down, come to find out, the city of Detroit or the administration left all of this Motown memorabilia in the building. So, like, when the wrecking ball's hitting it, you have, like, all of these pages of, like, handwritten song lyrics and things flowing out. I mean, we went up there and I grabbed just a box I found lying, in an alley or something over there, and I just stuffed it with like Motown envelopes and stationery and like blank record labels, and I didn't find any song lyrics, but I know other people did. And it was just, who does that? Like, you knew what the building was, And before you knock it down in this rush to provide parking for, I believe it was 3 buses during the Super Bowl, is what they got out of it.
I think the real rush was to put millions of dollars into Ferguson Enterprises coffers. But yeah.
I can neither confirm nor deny or even posit. But, I think the facts of other situations would say it would be in the realm of possibility. But yeah, it was just a loss. An Albert Kahn designed building. It was pretty. Could have been. And instead we got a parking lot, another one on Woodward. And then now it's part of the Little Caesars Arena area there in the front. So, I mean, that's
District Detroit.
Yeah, right.
part of District Detroit. Yeah.
Rising from the ashes, one parking lot at a time.
Well, speaking of that and all the billionaires, the Gilberts, the Ilitches, I mean, those are the 2 big ones. You do have Stephen Ross. I mean, how are they with, I guess, preserving the history of the city and buildings?
I mean, I can't speak to New York. I mean, obviously he's done most of his work there, Hudson Yard and all that other stuff. Here, he's building on vacant land.
Okay.
So I don't have any.
But what about Gilbert?
I mean, Gilbert has done more for downtown Detroit's historic architecture than any other individual, and we could have a conversation, Mike. I'm sure you look like you're licking your chops over there about it, but like the risk of having so much of the city's future fortunes, property all tied up in the hands of one individual is risky. But that said, I mean, before Gilbert started buying up land, there was no market. And a lot of those skyscrapers, keep in mind for listeners who are maybe a little bit younger and didn't live in Detroit during the 2000s. I mean, the reason why so many of those vacant skyscrapers were left to stand vacant for decades was because it cost more to tear them down than the land was worth underneath them. And the only reason why stuff was getting torn down was either because, like in the Lafayette Building's case, the Book Cadillac was being redeveloped and the developer didn't want guests looking at a vacant building out their windows, or they needed a parking garage for the Book Cadillac or whatever. I mean, that's
Bobby almost unintentionally demolished the Book Cadillac, by the way. Set a fire there by accident, but that's it happens.
But he did succeed in managing to remove all of the original gold leaf plaster details and stuff that were still in that building before.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's good.
Okay.
Kind of like Trump talking about them getting rid of that ceiling at the Fed. He demolishes the east wing of the White House, but he's upset about the ceiling. But yeah, the Book Cadillac still had a lot of its original details, and instead of preserving them, or even if not to keep in place, preserving as a piece of Detroit history, give it to the historical museum, whatever, they just junked it all and just gutted it.
But you've been preserving things. And Gilbert, I'm going to weigh in on Gilbert just briefly. I was talking to my neighbor the other day who's very involved in politics and what goes on. And we both kind of came to the same conclusion is it's dangerous to have a one-company town. And Gilbert, with his real estate holdings, kind of is a one-company town. But your option is a no-company town.
Right.
And
in what industry?
And he's created some critical mass downtown, and that's important. And initially, a lot of the work he did didn't rely on subsidies or incentives. And I will say, I still have a little question about the income tax diversion, but the way the city's doing incentives now, where you don't get the candy unless you open the store, makes more sense to me, as opposed to diverting money that we have to make something happen. We will allow you to give us less money once you finish doing something that will bring us some money. That seems to me to be
sensical.
Yeah, that seems to be reasonable. I mean, I tax increment financing in Chicago, they help bring back downtown. I know some of that stuff's debatable, but the way we're doing it now with the tax credits, maybe we don't need to give them as many in so many different varieties, but I kind of like it where you don't get shit unless you do shit.
And as I think most Americans would agree that that's the way it should be. And with like historic tax credits, I mean, it's not easy. It's not like you say to Uncle Sam, I'm going to rehab this building, give me money to do it. You get a refund or a rebate, as it were. They reimburse you for money spent, long as your renovations are within the Secretary of Interior standards and all that. But yeah, I hear you though. I mean, Detroit still is a city where incentives are needed. We're not there yet. It's way better than it was in 2002, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to bankruptcy. But yeah, it's not Chicago. I think it's a better city than Chicago personally, but better weather. But you have to be optimistic when it comes to things like historic preservation. You can sit there and say, don't tear it down. And then it's like, okay, the haters are the first thing they're going to say is, well, why don't you do something with it?
Well, I think one good example of that would be the old Hudson's building, right? I mean, that thing was gigantic.
Huge.
And probably impossible to fill until it got, demolished and rebuilt on. Do you have an opinion about what happened with that?
So I think the Hudson's is a great example of that. Look, so that was imploded in 1998.
Yeah.
We all remember
right on
it.
Woodward in the heart of downtown.
We all remember the live TV anchors getting covered in soot.
Those of us who are old enough to remember. Yeah, I watched it from my dorm room at Michigan State. But
where he was covered in smoke from
burning couches,
demolishing something else, maybe with some water bubbling on it.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, but I mean, quick side note. I mentioned earlier, I never got to really explore Detroit as a kid. I never saw Hudson's with my own eyes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it was imploded. I graduated from high school in 98.
Okay.
I watched it from my dorm room in Case Hall at State in 98, October of 98, get imploded. I'm like, wow, that was a huge, cool building.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it was just Hudson's. Like, to me, I had grown up with all those suburban mall stores. But anyway, the question mark on that one is Hudson's is probably the best example. When I was talking about you can't just save everything, Hudson's was huge. The amount of money being invested in this city in 1998 was like probably negative at that point. I mean, you just did not have it. Had the building been well preserved, mothballed, etc., yeah, it could have been rehabbed, but you also can't live only in the past. And it sounds funny having, the building hugger preservation is saying that, but you got to live in the now and build for the future. And there was no hope in 1998 that anybody was going to come forward and save that building.
Well,
I mean,
when I was an intern at the Free Press, which was about a decade before you were, some Canadian investors bought it
and scrapped it.
And they basically took anything out of it that was worth having. So
Yeah.
it wasn't even just a matter of, what are we going to do with this? It's like, oh shit, we got to redo the plumbing. And this was a building that was built kind of piecemeal. It wasn't like somebody said, we're going to build this big honking building. It kind of grew as Hudson's grew. So I think it
like
presented some
additions. Yeah.
Some problems.
Yeah. And again, what are you going to, all right. So then the next question, of course, is what's the use case for that building?
And
right?
where's the parking? Always, where's the parking?
Parking is, yes, the city. I don't know whether there's a downtown that has more parking than Detroit, but we are the Motor City. But yeah, so what are you going to do with it? So it's not going to be a department store. Detroit can't bring shoppers downtown, otherwise it wouldn't have closed in 83, right? Housing, not a ton of people looking to live in downtown Detroit at that time because it's mostly boarded up buildings and wig shops, and like you needed it. Had Hudson's closed now with everything downtown, yeah,
They could have refurbished it. Yeah.
it absolutely would have made sense.
Around that same time, 98, that they would have been planning for Comerica Park. What and then Ford Field a few years later. What was there? Like, I don't even remember what was at Comerica Park. The only thing I remember is they moved the Gem Theater. Like, that was a big deal.
And
the Elwood. That's right. Yeah, but what was where Comerica is now and Ford Field?
Yeah, so there was a bunch.
Of course, they're big. I mean, they're big lots.
I mean, if you want to talk about Tiger Stadium, I could talk about that all day. I'm still not over it, and it's been almost 20 years.
Well, we're going to do a bonus episode, by the way, with Dan. So Soulmates will get to talk. We're going to talk about some of the buildings we miss, the ones that are favorite buildings that are gone, and why they're on our list, and how we feel. So we will get to Tiger Stadium. Okay. If you're not a Soulmate yet, sign up. But yeah, so Downtown Y was a big one, right?
The Downtown Y was the biggest loss. Yeah. So in
and I don't even remember it. I mean, as someone who used to hang out around there, I mean, I used to hang out around Detroit when I was I was going to say complete derelict, but that doesn't really put a time frame on it. But
Early
the
derelict.
Detroit College of Law was there. Some of the best lawyers in Detroit
YWCA.
got their law degrees at night or on the weekends at downtown YMCA. But it was, I think, a massive building, and
It was the
doesn't
biggest
even,
YMCA in the world when it was built.
doesn't even register with me. I don't even remember. I don't
Well,
know why.
If you go to historicdetroit.org, you can find all sorts of photos and vintage postcards and the like, of everything that was demolished. Detroit College of Law was tough to find photos of, believe it or not. But, we're going to pull it up here. So, if you click on places, and on the handy search bar that comes up, just type in YMCA. And it's the second one there on the right,
What a cool
YMCA downtown branch. So that's it, Mike.
Yeah,
And-
how do I not remember that? I
no.
mean, that's not like driving past a Howard Johnson that's been imploded. That's a big ass building.
It was big, and now it did lose that fancy cupola there on the building, so it didn't look quite that good. If you scroll down, Mark, just a little bit there, and then
there you
in the old photos there, so that's what it looked like originally.
A cool building.
It really was, and again, the biggest one, J.L. Hudson himself slathered the mortar on the cornerstone when it was laid. So this was just one of the buildings, and it was in use. This was not an abandoned building at the time. And
maybe that's why I avoided it, because all the YMCA guys out front, asking, "Hey, you got a square? Can I get I get a square?"
Yeah,
Doses. I don't know.
But I mean, even that building, yes, it was a YMCA, and the city still has a bunch of them. But I don't know if that's where Albert Cobo went to go get ripped. He worked out in the gym, and it was just, think of all of the Detroiters who came to the city for work in the factories, whatever, they would have stayed there. Did they individually change Detroit's history? No, but it's not just a building, and especially in this case, we're not talking about just demolishing buildings that have sat vacant for 30 years, like in the Statler Hotel's case earlier. They had to demolish the YMCA, then we had to wait, 10 years at least before they built the Bowl YMCA.
Yeah.
They didn't have that figured out yet. The Detroit College of Law in Detroit, the Detroit College of Law, where's it at now? East Lansing.
East Lansing, yeah. Another proud alumni, Charlie Langton, I think, and Kwame Kilpatrick.
Well,
two theater majors, or two theatrical.
The other one that, Mark, that they demolished that I think was a mistake. I don't know whether it would make my list of top 10 most regrettable demos, but the Hotel Wolverine was vacant.
Take it down.
Was go
Take
green.
it down.
Go green. Wolverine State, yeah. But the Hotel Wolverine, that's like where Al Kaline, when he moved to Detroit from Baltimore to play for the Tigers, he stayed there, and Hank Greenberg stayed there, and they imploded that one in '97, and they did that, and not to like most other sports arena. Like I'm thinking of Columbus, Ohio in particular, because I used to live there, but like they have their arena, and then there are all of these apartments and shops, kind of like what the District of Detroit is supposed to be eventually. But they would never have imploded this building because it's right in front of the ballpark, and it was built as a hotel. The conversion to an apartment building would have been relatively easy.
Yeah.
But yes, it would have blocked the view of those giant concrete tigers. But but again, we get into city planning, and it's like most people don't put giant barren parking lots other than on game days where they're totally empty right on the heart of the main drag.
So I'm
But now-
looking at that photo there. So that is right across from.
You can see the church there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so the Comerica would be off to the right
Yep.
there. Okay.
Yep.
So the YMCA would have been right across the street. From it.
So the YMCA would have been.
So it was Witherell and Adams.
So the YMCA stood on the southeast side of East Grand Circus Park.
Okay.
And the DCL was right next to it.
Gotcha.
The YWCA was a little further up on Mount Calm. I'm trying to remember. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
So Dan, you know what they want to build on those parking lots in front of Comerica Park?
I do.
Great big towers.
Does that
People
that bother you, or do you
can
understand
live
it?
and work that may actually be as useful as the Wolverine apartments would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than a parking lot, though, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but they took it down to build a parking lot. Now they want to build, it's sort of like, come on, boys.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Well, that's done though now, so
Yeah.
you got to look forward, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah. I would say in the Illich / Olympia defense, the buildings that they have actually renovated, they have done a really good job with. Like, I'm really impressed with the Eddystone Hotel renovation. That had sat empty for, God, as long as I can remember. And that's beautiful. And yes, they imploded its twin sister, the Park Avenue, to make way for a loading dock for an arena, which I was pretty vocal about at the time. But they did a great job with that, you know. But they're working on the Women's City Club right now. I haven't gotten an update.
United Artists too, isn't that one of theirs?
Well, technically they own it.
Okay.
But they brought in a bunch of African American developers to do what the Ilitches had not been able to do since they bought it in '97.
Okay.
And look, you know, I'm not developing buildings. I don't have any money, especially with my cancer bills. But I mean, like, I'm not trying to be critical, and these are not easy projects to pull off. But I mean, at the same time, I was 17 when the family bought the United Artists, and then I was 43 when they started working on it.
Right.
I mean, this is not like, you know, developer get off the pot does come into the conversation at some point. And I think, like, another example for me, East Side, we'll talk, since you're my favorite East Sider, like the Whittier Hotel on the Detroit River. It's where the Beatles were staying when they played Olympia in '64. Beautiful building. It has been vacant for, God, at least 20 years. Part of it, the smaller part is a senior living place, but like the tower, and
it's on the water.
And it's on the water. It's a beautiful building. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, I believe, so it already qualifies for tax credits. I mean, Mel Washington has had that for, God, at least 20 years probably. It's okay if you can't do it. Like, I can't do it.
Right.
And it's okay to sell it to somebody who can or will. But the longer these places are allowed to deteriorate, they get to the point where it's either impossible or it is vastly more expensive. I was just in the Vanity Ballroom a couple of years ago, and like that one breaks my heart. Another East Side location there on Jefferson and Newport. One of the most beautiful spaces. I get it that the neighborhood over there in Jeff Chalmers, especially at the time, probably couldn't have supported it, but man, that would have drawn people from all over. It would have been like a little Cliff Bell's in the heart of Jeff Chalmers.
Yeah.
That building has not had a roof. And I'm not saying it has holes in the roof. I mean, it has less roof than it has roof.
Yeah.
Okay? For years.
There's not even enough for a tree to take root up there, as our
There's
friend
not.
Bill McGraw reported many years ago.
The dance floor is covered with them. But yeah, I mean, that building.
Can that be saved? I mean,
I think best case at this point, because there is still some original plaster with like this Aztec Mayan theme. Mark, if you want to pull up the website again, and just so the
and again, for folks who don't know the East Side, very big in Inca culture. A lot of human sacrifices going on there, mainly over cocaine, but but
Corktown's
still.
where the Irish were. East Side is where the Incan.
Yeah. Machu Picchu is right there, I think, across the street.
Right. Yeah. Well, different kind of ruins, I guess. But the point here is that parts of it have been able to dodge Mother Nature through these giant holes in the ceiling, but you have to mold and other things. I mean, maybe it's making molds and trying to replicate what was there, which is not as good, not as ideal, but so much of it's lost just in the last couple of years. And I mean, I used to go in there when I was younger. I mean, that's why I got cancer. But during urban exploration being a big thing, and you would look at the space, and it was the most, even in ruin, it was beautiful. Maybe not the most beautiful place I'd ever been, but beautiful. And think, God, can you imagine if we could bring this back? And now, because JEI did try, Jefferson East did try to save it, and they couldn't make it pencil out. So to answer your question, I don't know. It's probably too late, but then again, Jeff Chalmers is seeing a lot of investment, and it's I don't know whether I call it the next neighborhood, but I know a lot of people are moving over there, and
if you don't mind flooding, it's great.
Well, you don't have to live in Jeff Chalmers to suffer flooding in Detroit. Trust me, I live in aviation. But
and I know it from East English. Well, so you mentioned something about going back in there, and I used to spend a lot of time hanging out at the Packard Plant as a reporter, but there's this whole thing about ruin porn and people glorifying. It's like, and it's sort of it becomes a point of debate over are these people just being nostalgic, or they want to go back to the time when all the white guys ran everything and we're just reveling in the depravity. Where do you draw the line, and what sort of parameters do you put around this is historically significant, something we need to be aware of, we need to talk about, and it's just people getting off on a place where they can tag it and they can run around and play paintball and do all kinds of mischief.
Yeah, Packard should have been taken down a long time ago. I mean, again, it comes back to being, I don't know, realistically optimistic, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
I mean, because the Packard was actually not in that bad a shape until like around 2000. I mean, it closed, like they stopped making Packards in 56, I want to say, but like it wasn't abandoned in 56. It wasn't until the city went in there and kicked out, it was a Greek guy, I'm blanking on his name. But basically, that's when the scrappers came in, and then that's when you start having the floors collapsing and everything. That's when things got bad. But even then, I mean, what need is there? Oh, there's a Packard, yeah.
Oh, that's a nice shot.
I mean, so many photos.
It doesn't look like that anymore.
No.
Yeah, and I shout out to Helmut Zeelers, who's, God, if he had joined me in this effort just even a couple years earlier. This was a one-man operation until a couple years ago, but Helmut's really talented. And, but anyway, to answer the question, I mean, Detroit is a city that I don't think that we ever had real urban planning. I mean, if you look at...
Well, Judge Woodward wanted a series of circles going out from downtown. We got to Grand Circus Park, and it kind of fell apart.
Yeah,
right?
1805, right, because there was nothing beyond Grand Circus Park at that point.
It's supposed to be like Washington, right, where there's going to be circles and
or Paris
spaces.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically come to Detroit, build whatever you want, wherever you want to do it, and we'll just welcome you. And so that's why you have like all of these auto plants and factories smack dab in the middle of neighborhoods all over. And then once those places inevitably close, and it costs a lot of money to tear them down and remediate them, look at Uniroyal.
Yeah.
It's like a cancer that just spreads through that neighborhood. And the Packard plant, I mean, my God, there's like St. Anthony's is over there. The Catholic, it's not Catholic anymore, it's ecumenical. But like there's nothing else over there. Because who the hell wants to live next to this giant festering guy with like 3.5 million square feet, I think, of... I mean, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's not a salvageable one. You can't save things just for the sake of saving. I think of the schools, for me right now, is where we're seeing a lot of loss of architectural beauty and history to a certain degree. But schools are really hard to repurpose. It's not an easy adaptive reuse project because you have all of these classrooms. They're great. They're apartments, right? Yeah, but they don't have bathrooms.
Right.
And they're built thick concrete floors. You got to drill through all of that for every apartment. And like people want to shower. And so then you put a bathroom into the classroom and then this classroom's even smaller. I mean, it's tough to do that. But that said, I've rather seen DPSCD put money into fixing up old cast tech instead of spending way, way, way more to build a brand new one and then spend even millions more to demolish the old one? Absolutely. I mean, Cass Tech was probably the one school that merited being saved from demolition, unquestionably. That we might have, because of its location right downtown, we might have been able to find somebody who was willing to take that on. But I've seen developers who have fixed up a couple schools. Transfiguration School in Banglatown is one of them, smaller school. But
I mean, I live in Berkeley, and there's an old Catholic school that closed, and guess what it is now? Condos. So it can be done if there's people.
St. Charles Borromeo in West Village has turned into some very high-end condos, and St. Matthews on the east side
is also
in Morningside is turning into some low-end condos. And not low quality, but affordable housing.
More affordable housing, yeah. And affordable housing and LIHTC, all of that is so important to get those done. The Transfiguration Project also relied on LIHTC because you need these catalytic
and what's LIHTC?
I'm sorry, low income housing tax credits, if you're nasty. Yes. Sorry.
I thought it was Miss Janet if you're Miss Jackson.
No, it's
if you're
Lytech
nasty.
if you're nasty. But again, those gets back to those incentives that we were talking about earlier. But most cities, when it comes to building lower income or affordable housing, regardless of where they are, I mean, if you're a developer in New York and you're building rent controlled, I shouldn't say rent controlled. I mean, it's low income housing. Like HUD says, you cannot charge more than this amount per month.
Right.
Then they're going to need, those resources those incentives to make that happen. It's just how it's done. And yeah, there are some developers out there, rich people, who will do what's right for the sake of doing something good, like helping people have quality, affordable housing. But there aren't many of them. Most people need to make money. And if you're telling me I can't charge more than 60% of the area median income, then I'm going to eat $30 million on that project. I ain't going to do it.
Right. Or if I can make 10 times as much somewhere else, I'm in it to make money. So why not?
But I mean, and I'll say one more quick thing there, Mark, but also keep in mind, most of these projects, it costs just as much to develop one of these projects in Chicago or LA or San Diego as it does in Detroit. There are fewer people who might be wanting that property in question, but nails are nails. Tariffs and whatever affect wood here just like they do in California.
There's so many other buildings I want to ask you about. We'll save it for the bonus
Yeah.
episode because we want to talk about the Austin Past and Future Fund.
Sure. That is why I'm here, I guess.
Yeah, which
Yeah, and Historic Detroit, if you want to see some of these buildings, go to historicdetroit.org and you can see all those. Not ruin porn. This gives you a chance to look back and appreciate and get some of the stories behind them.
Yeah,
too.
I mean that was one of the reasons why I started doing the site and the first book was because we had all of these, a lot of Europeans like airdropping into Detroit to do this ruined pornography stuff, and they would show photos of, wow, look how messed up Detroit is. Check out this abandoned dentist office in the Broderick Tower, but there was no context about what it was, how it got to be that way, no respect for the city or the people, and so. I said that, look, every building has a story, and those stories collectively are Detroit's story. And so, hey, if you're going to tear it down, fine, but you're going to have to let me tell you about what you're robbing future generations of. And again, things have changed a lot in the last 20 years. In the 20 years I've been doing this, I mean, it was really more of a preservation thing. Stopping the next Madison Lennox, trying to get this to make people think before they fire the bulldozers. It's still going on. There's still, got schools like Karsten's on the east side. I was really sad to see go, but like that is not the norm. Now, it's like I'm spending more of my time trying to document buildings that are already gone, not because it's important, but because like there aren't a whole lot of people who are willing to sink hundreds of hours into poring over old newspaper articles from the 1920s about a building they didn't
or
even
to
know
figure
existed.
out about these
bananas.
apparently lethal sources of potassium.
Exploding bananas, bombastic bananas.
So that's historicdetroit.org and the Austin Past and Future Fund. You've probably heard Dan mention a couple times that he has cancer. He's kind of glib about it, but he does have cancer. And he is dying, as we all are. He's, once again, ahead of the curve. So congratulations, Dan.
That's the most positive spin.
Yeah. So, there's always somebody got to be a first adopter. Way to go, Danny.
Yeah.
But, I make light of it because Dan is pretty stoic. But it is serious, and he wants to, tell you a little health tip, but also the Austin Past and Future Fund isn't just about preserving Detroit's history. It's about trying to build a better future for us.
Yeah, yeah. So I was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer in August of 2024. I had lost a good friend of mine, Graham Davis, to the same damn disease in 2020. He was 33, diagnosed at stage 4. I went in at
We lost Dan Fricker at the Free Press back in early 2000s.
Yeah, Jamie Samuelson.
Yeah, that's true.
Jamie lost his life to colorectal too at 48, I think Jamie was. I mean, nobody should ever die of cancer, but not someone who's 33, not someone who's 48, especially with small kids. I mean, my God. I mean, but the point being,
Get checked.
Get checked. I've had a number of people who told me, much like me, my problem was I went in 2020 after Graham passed saying, look, I'd like to get a colonoscopy. And they said, you're only 40, you don't have a history of it. Your insurance won't cover the colonoscopy. So if you want to pay out of pocket for it, go for it. But I'm not going to sit here and like badmouth Henry Ford Hospital or Blue Cross Blue Shield because that's what everybody does. It was just, they said, we're not going to guarantee that you don't have cancer, but I also have multiple sclerosis in my winning the health lottery. They thought the issues I was having was tied to MS, not cancer.
Right.
So anyway, those problems got worse. And then in 2024, I finally, they approved my procedure. They found that it was massive and it had spread to my lungs. And that was when I decided that I'm not the type to sit around feeling bad for myself. I feel like most Detroiters don't. Like, it is what it is. And bitching about it's not going to change anything. So what can we change? And how can we take something that, for me at least, is a really, really shitty situation and try to make something positive out of it? And so the fund came up with, the fund came from this idea of initially, I had a lot of people who asked, usually most asked, how am I doing, before they asked what's going to happen to the website. But a lot of people did. And, we get 1.5 million page views a year, from all over the world. So it was important to me to save it. But I wouldn't say I wanted to leave a legacy. It was more like, if I die and the web hosting costs aren't covered and this website goes away, all of the work, all of these stories of our city that I dedicated my life to unearthing are going to be covered up again and lost. And it's not to say that I'm the only historian. I mean, Javon Jordan, Ken Coleman, there are a lot of other people who do this, but like, I'm really focused more on the architectural stuff. Well, then in talking with folks, I was talking with friends, and I'd get calls from people like Peter Cummings and others. And I'm like, wow, you know what? We might be able to raise more money than we need for the website. And maybe we can do something that does more for the city than just run a website. Maybe we can actually help Detroit youth. And so that's where the Past and the Future Fund came from. It was that protecting the past and preserving the website going in perpetuity is a free community resource. No ads, no fees. I mean, I put everything out there, but also to provide these scholarships for Detroit youth. And my stipulation on it was they have to be committed to giving back to the city in some way. Like, for me, Detroit gave my life purpose and meaning. And all I wanted to do was make Detroit a better place, however I could. I can't bring down a corrupt mayor like some people, but I try to do it in my own way, right?
We're not all Jim Schaefer. Don't worry about it.
Shade. You leave that nice man alone.
That's probably a good thing. But,
yeah. But anyway, I wanted, whether it's as a teacher or a social worker or as a historian or an urban planner, or, there are any number of ways that someone can give back to this city. And I don't need to tell you or any of your listeners that Detroit still needs a lot of help. We've come a long way. It's way better than it was. We still got a ways to go.
Yeah, we've come to the top of the hill before and haven't crested it. We've fallen back.
Yes, exactly.
And when we lose the buildings, we lose stories. And when we lose stories, we lose history. And we lose history, we not only lose a portion of ourselves, in my experience, we increase the odds that we will repeat the parts of the history that kept us from going to a better place.
That's true, but it's also, we're talking about the livelihood and the chances, the odds that Detroit has, at least downtown, to come back. I mean, people have made it clear that younger people have made it clear that they don't want white picket fences and cul-de-sacs in the suburbs. They want to live in places of culture, beauty, art, things with things to do.
Walkable cities.
Walkable cities. They want to live, work, and play. That's what they want. And so you can't do those things on a surface parking lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that maybe we won't lose a couple others. I'm really curious to see what happens with 1300 Beaubien. But like for the most part, almost everything downtown has been renovated at this point. There's some that are still underway, but most of it's either been demolished or saved. So then, okay, what's the next?
Yeah, and 1300 Beaubien's the old police headquarters right near Greektown that Gilbert got as part of his deal to build a new criminal justice center and take away the failed jail site.
Failed jail, yeah.
Along with the old jail and the new jail, and those are actually being torn down as we speak.
They're already gone,
including Kwame Kilpatrick selling the new jail. I think it was one of the first ones, the VIP unit.
But jail, there's another really tough reuse case.
Yeah,
I mean it's a jail.
Yeah,
I mean, what are you going to do with it?
I wouldn't say either one of them were architecturally brilliant, and I don't want to. I want to end talking a little bit more about the Austin Past and Future Fund, but brutalist architecture, very controversial. Yeah. Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, horrible building internally, externally not particularly easy on the eyes.
It looks better with a mural on it,
but a prime example of brutalist architecture that I presume will be falling soon too. Pro-brutalist, anti-brutalist?
I am anti-brutalist.
Okay, all right. Then we'll move right.
I'm not gonna chain myself to that one. I think I would love to see Frank Murphy honored.
That name should survive.
Yeah, Frank Murphy is one of the greatest mayors Detroit ever had. If you're not familiar,
and great governor and great
U.S. Supreme Court justice,
superintendent of the Philippines or whatever the hell he was.
He was a governor. But most importantly, a U.S. Supreme Court justice. Yeah. And he presided over the Ocean Sweet trials. Dr. Sweet was the black doctor who moved into a white neighborhood on the east side on Garland Street, and then a mob of thousands.
Started the riots, right? Yeah. Those riots.
Yeah, and then they did what I think anyone would do, especially in this era of Stand Your Ground and Trayvon Martin and all of that. They fired back at the crowd to save themselves, and then one of the guys died, and they charged him with murder.
Yeah.
And Clarence Darrow and others. But Murphy was the judge on that case. Murphy is a guy who we should somehow, kind of like the Joe Louis Greenway preserves Joe Louis's name.
Let's put him out there with Hazen Pingree somewhere we can.
He's not Pingree level.
Well, he's
up there. He's in my top 5.
We got lots of corners on those parks, even though they're circles. But Austin Past and Future Fund, how can people help? What happens with the money?
Yeah, so we set it up as an endowment fund. So you can make a tax-deductible donation to austinfund.org or austinpastandfuturefund.org if you feel like giving your fingers a workout.
We'll put a link to his website on our website, folks.
Yeah. So your donation will be tax deductible. And then we take that money and then we invest it into an account with Fidelity Wealth Management, which sounds funny because it's a pretty small account and it's this fun. But anyway, the point is that your dollar grows, long as the stock market doesn't go to hell and other things.
But even then, they only spend the interest, not the principal.
That's the goal. So the first year we're trying to raise $100,000 because everyone I talked to, Katie Lockers, folks at Wilson Foundation and others, they said, look, you really need $100,000 because if you want to make a difference and give a scholarship that'll actually do something. Like I can give a kid a $500 scholarship to buy his books.
Yeah. And this
but they can't afford
$4,000, $5,000, $8,000, something that makes a big difference in a kid's year.
I mean, it's going to be up to the board. I'm not on the board, but for them to decide how many to give and how big, but you're not supposed to give away more than like 4, maybe 6 if you're really generous % of your holdings because the idea is that you keep it going in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So we did really well right out of the gate. I was humbled and so thankful. We're about halfway to the goal, but things are slowing down. Yeah. People jumped on it when I was doing, like Neil Rubin wrote that great column and all the other media, but things are slowing down. So it's like, well, we got to keep going because if we can't get to 100,000, then we were risking scholarships that, like I said, we might be able to afford a kid's books, but they can't afford to go to college. Then what good is that?
Yeah.
And we want to make an actual difference, not just cut someone a check, so that's the goal of the fund. And then also, again, it keeps the website going in perpetuity, keeps it as a free community resource. And it's still TBD who takes over. It sounds like you might be my next historian there with your knowledge of the Statler chain.
You should do it.
Boy, I need a 6th job.
No, just make that your only job. Stop everything else.
I will tell you from experience that
Take it under advisement.
nobody gets into history
To get
or
rich.
journalism,
Rich,
or
yeah.
journalism for that matter,
Yeah.
for a living. I mean, I was paying out of my own pocket to keep Historic Detroit going for as long as I had, and then we also have a Patreon. All of that is tax deductible as well. It flows into the fund. but
What's the Patreon?
Patreon.com/Historic Detroit, I believe.
Okay.
So, folks, here's the goal. We usually ask you to support us as soulmates. If you have a few bucks to make a donation, think about the Austin Past and Future Fund. We'll have a link to that on our website. We would love to see that be as well endowed as Dan Austin.
I can't believe you.
What a creep.
Mike Elric, ladies and gentlemen.
Got some big buildings there.
If I could also, one more plug. Next Saturday, some friends of mine from the Duggan administration are hosting a fundraiser at Northern Lights Lounge and News Center. $5. I used to do the Motor City Soul Club, all 60s and 70s rare soul and funk records. They're going to be playing. $5 to get in. Of course, we'll take more if they want to give it, but that'll help benefit the fund as well. So that's this Saturday. Andalisi says she's going to try to make it. She's got a small procedure she's got to do, so she'll be there. I'll be there.
May 2nd, then?
May 2nd.
May
Saturday,
2nd.
4 to 8 p.m. at Northern Lights
Northern
Lounge.
Lights. That's in the new center, which happens to be surrounded by some amazing architecture.
And parking lots.
As a bonus. And parking lots. There you go. So check it out. Dan, stick around for the bonus episode. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mike. It's good to see you and hang out with
Thank
you.
you for everything you're doing too.
Yeah. No, it's the thing that makes Detroit great is the people, and whether you're born here, whether you made yourself a Detroiter, we appreciate you, and trying to tell our story is really important because maybe AI is going to do. I don't think so. I don't think there's enough out there for it to scrape.
I wouldn't trust it.
So we really need. Yeah, Ossian. They may say the Ossian Sweet House was an Airbnb on the east side where people from the neighborhood got together. For a potluck.
And it had a potluck. Yeah, they had a party outside of thousands of people. There was so much wine brought that they just threw it,
A little hootenanny there.
Yeah,
So,
the other thing I would just say, not to self-aggrandize too much, but as a former journalist, a recovering journalist, I'm really dedicated to getting the facts straight. And so, like right now, I'm trying to untangle the history of Aretha Franklin's dad's house, C.L. Franklin's house on LaSalle Boulevard. And if you Google it,
just
says,
down the street from Kwame Kilpatrick's mother's house. Get the bell ready. Everything comes back to Kilpatrick.
I'm seeing it 6 degrees of Kwame.
You can't get away from it.
But anyway, if you Google it, it says like Aretha lived there from 8 until 17 or whatever. But that's not true according to the research I've done.
Okay.
And so we're trying to. Nothing is worse than seeing things that are, here's the truth, right? Because we're in this war of fake messaging and spin and stuff from the White House, and everybody is an armchair historian on Wikipedia. I mean, Wikipedia will tell you that Old City Hall was demolished for Campus Martius. Last I checked, Campus Martius was part of Judge Woodward's 1805 plan and predated Old City Hall by 65 years. So like, we're really committed to getting it right. Yeah. And I have precious few moments left on this earth, and I am wasting them tracking down a goddamn banana explosion in a building in Eastern Market that's been gone since like 88 or 89. Like, I mean, it's...
Yeah, but how many lives are you saving by warning people about these bananas?
I mean,
that's a pretty proud legacy.
I mean, you have to decide whether it's worth the potassium.
Yeah, I
hate
always,
bananas. But
I've always been more of a strawberry guy myself. So far, no deaths related to strawberries, unless it was that shit they sprayed on them. But
could be.
But thanks, Dan. We're gonna jump into the bonus episode in a minute. But first, I need to tell you a little bit about the people who can help you be well endowed in terms of your financial future. That's Luke Nowacki. Interestingly enough, Kathy Ireland has never spoken to Luke Nowacki. She'd probably dig him if she did. Actually, now that I think about it, every celebrity that has gone broke has never spoken to Luke Nowacki. Maybe you shouldn't take that chance. Call or text Luke Nowacki at 248-663-4748. Who knows? Maybe you can find a way to get your own Champions Club tickets so you're not trying to weasel them from Drew like some people we know. But this much I can guarantee you. When you call Luke and Zach and Nick, That make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. Member FINRA-SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
I also want to encourage you to go see DCFC Le Rouge at Keyworth, another historic site in Detroit that was preserved by people who love our local soccer team, now playing the second division of professional soccer. Big deal on Saturday. You can go to this after or in the middle of Dan's event. 6 o'clock. It's an earlier start time at Keyworth. They're playing first place Louisville. It's expected to be a sellout, but we are going to help you get there and on a bargain offer too. If you go to debtcityfc.com, you can get 15% off your tickets if you enter promo code SOUL. That's SOUL. The big news with DCFC, the old Southwest Detroit Hospital was demolished. I don't think Dan missed that one. I think very few of us did. The site is clear, and now Barton Mallow has been chosen to do the construction. That is expected to be ready in time for next season. That's pretty amazing. So you can keep up with all the Detroit City news here, and of course at their website. Team's doing well, third place, one of the best keepers in the league, one of the best goal scorers in the league, and Coach
and
Danny.
the best fan base.
It's just well, of course, the Northern Guard. I mean, they're crazy. We love them, and it's a lot. It's a great time. Let's just put it that way. Get to the game. It's Saturday, May 2nd versus Louisville. Use promo code SOUL at checkout. You'll save 15% on your tickets, and hopefully I'll see you at one of those games. And before we go, we're gonna shorten the show just a little bit because we talked to Dan so much, and we could have gone for hours, but he's got other stuff to do. So we're going to just thank our donors. Rusty Unger is a new soulmate. Rusty, thanks for joining us. And it looks like Randy re-upped. Randy, great to have you as a soulmate. I noticed you did that a few weeks ago. I'm sorry that we're just thanking you now, but we really, like Dan's project, we rely on people to bring us back week after week, and so we appreciate your support. And of course, one of our big supporters has been the Caju Cafe. It's a great place for a great time on the east side. They've got karaoke, they've got open jam sessions,
feather bowling.
Feather bowling. Where else are you gonna go feather bowling?
Nowhere.
It's one of the things that sets it apart from all places. The weather's getting better, so the beer garden's going to be opening soon, so you can hear great music out there. And of course, the kitchen's open late and it has a terrific menu. Monday is Muscle Madness. Here's some great music. Eat all the mussels you can. And there's so much to say. I'm going to kick it to their website, cajucafe.com, which if you can't spell it, you can find a link to their website at our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com, where we also welcome you to send us your feedback, to send us your suggestions for room 7609 at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. So right back to us. We'll have it in next week's show. We have a little feedback we'll share with you next week, including Mr. Magoo, who thinks he has an answer to my question from last week, who was playing that sick Fender Mustang in the Walking Down Madison by Kirsty McCall. All that and more next week on The Soul of Detroit. If you're a soulmate, look for our bonus episode to drop where we dig a little deeper into some of our lost treasures here with Dan Austin. Dan, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate helping get the word out.
Yeah, and do your best to do what I always did, is drag out that deadline as long as you can. Don't be in a rush.
I'm not in a rush, but you should. Our listeners should be in a rush to go get a colonoscopy or a Cologuard.
I was going to say Cologuard. I'm glad you
do
mentioned
it.
That, insurance will almost definitely cover that, no matter what.
Even if it doesn't,
and it's not that expensive.
Any cost. If I had to do over,
of course,
I would have done it because I could have caught it 4 years earlier, and maybe it would have been stage 1 or 2 because it was growing inside me for 8 years before they caught it.
Yeah.
So it's a slow metastasizing cancer. It's I shouldn't say easy. It is one of the easier cancers to cure if you catch it early.
Yeah. So men, if you're a man who's approaching 50 and you haven't had a colonoscopy done
before 40, that,
yeah. But I mean, we have guys who are like, well, I don't need to do it till I'm whatever. I think once you're in your 30s, you should be getting your prostate checked. I don't know if they do it the old way, which is,
Yeah, they could do the colonoscopy at the same time.
But now they have all these other tests.
But the age is coming down, so now it's 40. But even then, I mean, it's worth the peace of mind because there's no way you're going to know.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Do you want to be checked too soon or too late?
Take it from me.
Do we really? I mean,
Too
isn't that a
soon.
rhetorical question?
Yeah.
You know.
And colonoscopies are honestly not that
They're
bad.
not bad at all.
They're really not. You're out cold for it.
Stop being such a wuss about it.
They're
Just do it.
way
Yeah,
better
who
than
cares?
they were
Yeah.
20 years ago when I had one when I worked at Channel 4, which, by the way, was some of the best hidden camera work I ever did at Channel 4.
Jesus Christ.
And it reminded me of working there because I was surrounded by assholes.
Oh.
No, I like the people I work with at Channel 4. I'm not sure things worked out that well. But anyway,
Not all of them.
Yeah. On that note,
Not all of them.
get checked. Come back next week. Watch for our bonus episode. And Cyrus, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
That's the essence of it. My whole life is devoted to architecture, and that's what I live on.
The Soul of Detroit.